Hello, boys. Hello, girls. Hello, babes. Welcome back to the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. We are so happy to have you all here and so happy to be able to do this episode where our Washington Capitals are in a playoff spot. What? After game number 80, folks, of the regular season. If you had that on your bingo card at the beginning of this season, then I congratulate you, as I don't think a lot of people were predicting that at the start of this season. I mean, I was one of those few people who did think that this was a very real possibility, but then I'm an eternal optimist. But yeah, in general, not a lot of people, not a lot of the so-called experts out there were predicting this for this season's Washington Capitals at the start of this season. And so it is so great to see our boys in red proving all of the doubters wrong right now. And now there is still work to be done for our Washington Capitals and for us here at the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast, as there are still 2 more games left to be played for the Caps on their regular season slate. And so we will talk about that in just a moment here. But first off, we would love it ever so much if you would join us and come along for this ride. And you can do that by subscribing to our show on any of the major podcast platforms, because whether the Caps end up making the playoffs or not here, there is going to be an awful lot to talk about either way. We're either going to be celebrating and previewing playoff matchups for the Caps, or we are going to be running group therapy sessions here on the show. But whichever it is, whatever the case may be, whichever way that this thing goes here, we have got you covered here at Jenaya Talks Caps. So please click on that subscribe button when you get a moment, and let's all take this ride together. All right. Now that little piece of business is out of the way, let's talk some hockey, babes, because we are still playing meaningful hockey games here. The Washington Capitals are. Like I said, we're past game number 80 now of the regular season, and the Washington Capitals very much playing meaningful games here down the stretch. They are in a playoff spot right now as it stands here right now as I'm recording this episode. And here is the rundown for you, okay? Our Washington Capitals right now, they occupy the second and last wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference to get into the Stanley Cup Playoffs. But as I alluded to just a moment ago, there are still 2 more regular season games to be played for the Caps before they can permanently lay claim to that playoff spot. They have games left against the Boston Bruins and the Philadelphia Flyers, the Caps do. Those being back-to-back on Monday and Tuesday night, with the game against the Bruins coming at home at Capital One Arena. That is the final home game for the Caps of this regular season. And then the game against the Flyers will be played the following night in Philadelphia. Both of those teams still have a lot left to play for here, as the Boston Bruins, you know, they've clinched a playoff spot, but they have not yet wrapped up the Atlantic Division title. So there is still a possibility that the Florida Panthers could catch them there. So they will be playing hard. The Bruins will be for sure, and they will not be resting guys for the playoffs quite yet. And then as far as the Philadelphia Flyers are concerned, there is actually still an outside chance that the Flyers could still make the playoffs, believe it or not. But that game against our Caps is the Flyers' final game of the season. They only have 1 game left. And if the Caps have beaten the Bruins in regulation the night before, then the Flyers are going to need to beat the Caps in regulation in order to get into the playoffs as the last wild card. If the Caps have beaten the Bruins in overtime, then the Flyers will need to beat the Caps in regulation or in overtime. That is reflected in the ROW column of the NHL standings. So you see, like, there's a number of tie-breaking procedures to follow for the NHL standings. And right now, the Caps and the Flyers are tied in basically all of those tiebreakers too. So essentially, whatever the Caps do against the Bruins, the Flyers will need to either match that or better that in order to have a chance to get themselves into the playoffs. And they would also need, the Flyers would, they would also need a lot of help elsewhere as well, needing some other teams to lose some of their remaining games too. But still, it could happen. And so the Flyers are going to have something to play for in that game. They are also going to be fully rested, the Flyers are, while the Caps, on the other hand, are going to have traveled in to Philadelphia to play the second half of a back-to-back for themselves. So it's not an ideal scenario for the Washington Capitals, who will not be able to actually clinch a playoff spot until they have at least earned a point in that season finale game in Philadelphia. And they might have to do better than just the 1 point in Philly as well, depending, of course, on what the other teams, those being the Red Wings, the Penguins, and the Islanders, depending on what those other teams do in their games as well. So there's a lot to watch for here over these final few days of the regular season. And for those wanting the full picture and, maybe not understanding the NHL's tie-breaking procedures, which, hey, I don't blame you at all if you don't understand them, as they are extremely convoluted. But let me break it down here for you guys, hopefully in a way that everybody can understand. So right now, the teams that are of consequence to the Caps, basically, are the New York Islanders, the Detroit Red Wings, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Islanders, they currently sit in third place in the Metropolitan Division, but that is not locked up for them quite yet, as the Islanders right now have 90 standings points with 2 games remaining to be played for them. If they were to lose both of those games, they could potentially lose third in the Metropolitan Division to either of the Caps or the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Flyers are unable to catch the Islanders at this point, as the Flyers only have, like I said, the 1 game remaining, that being their season finale against our very own Washington Capitals. The Capitals, Red Wings, and Flyers right now all have 87 standings points apiece, while the Penguins have 86 standings points, but the Caps, Red Wings, and Penguins all have 2 games remaining apiece, while the Flyers, as I mentioned, have just the 1 game remaining, which, at this late stage in the playoff race is obviously a huge disadvantage to them. But I mean, that's their own fault, right? They should have won more games earlier. They should have won an extra game somewhere earlier. So for Philly and Detroit, it is that last wild card spot or bust for them. Whereas for the Caps and the Pens, as mentioned, they can both still potentially catch the Islanders for third place in the Metropolitan Division, depending, of course, on what the Islanders do in their last couple of games. If not, then that last wildcard spot becomes their only remaining point of entry as well, for the Caps and the Penguins. So a lot going on here. Like I said, there will be a lot to watch over, the final few days of the regular season here. Everybody's going to be scoreboard watching, I'm sure. And for those wondering, like I said, because I have gotten quite a few questions about this, so the tie-breaking procedure in the NHL is as follows. So at the conclusion of the regular season, if 2 teams are tied in standings points, regulation wins is the first tiebreaker. If they are also tied in regulation wins, then regulation plus overtime wins is the second tiebreaker. So that is that ROW column that I was telling you about earlier. So if they are also tied in regulation plus overtime wins, then the greater number of games won in any fashion, including via a shootout, is the third tiebreaker. So this number is going to be reflected in the W column on the standings, this being on the NHL's website. So, and God forbid, by the way, like if 3 tiebreakers is not enough, which it might not be, by the way, if it's coming down to Capitals versus Flyers, then 3 tiebreakers very well might not be enough. So in that case, if that is ever to happen, then the 4th tiebreaker is the greater number of points earned in games between the 2 teams in question. So in this case, like between the Capitals and the Flyers in their season series. And then the 5th tiebreaker, if it comes down to that, the 5th tiebreaker, much to the chagrin of Capitals fans, would be the season's goal differential of the 2 teams in question. And for those wondering, yes, there is actually a scenario right now where that 5th tiebreaker could come into play between the Capitals and the Flyers to determine who gets that last playoff spot, and the Capitals would lose that tiebreaker. But best not to think about that for right now, right? Lest you start day drinking while at work. So for the Washington Capitals, there is an easy way to avoid all of these crazy tie-breaking scenarios, a way that they have earned by working themselves into this position where they control their own destiny with 2 games left, and that is simply to win these final 2 games. Just win them. Win and you are in 2 hockey games. And I know that's easier said than done because it wasn't really 2 hockey games. Like in reality, the Caps have been playing playoff hockey for 3 months now, and they are rightfully exhausted. But at this point, with what's left now of the regular season, it really is. It's 2 games left, win 2 more games, and everything that you did over these last 3 months is going to feel well worth it. I promise you. And I know that it is going to be hard because, as I already mentioned earlier, these 2 teams that the Caps have left to play, they still have a lot left to play for themselves in their, for their own seasons here. As well. So like these other teams that the Caps are going to be playing against, the Bruins and the Flyers, they want to win the game too. So it's not going to be easy by any means. But at least you control it, right? You control it. Like you have control of your own destiny, which I guarantee you, like Pittsburgh, Detroit, Philly, they would all kill to have control of their own destinies right now. So let's grab a hold of it and make it ours here. Okay. Now that we have talked about what is upcoming here for the Washington Capitals, now let's just chat quickly, right, about what happened over this past week of Capitals hockey since we did our last episode. How did the Caps get here? How did they get to where they're back in a playoff spot? Let's talk about that because there were 3 Capitals games that were played since we did our last episode here. Those being the games in Detroit and then in Buffalo. And then finally at home against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So 3 huge games, and the Caps won 2 out of 3 in regulation. So let's start with what I don't think anyone would argue was the biggest of the 3 games, right? That being the game against the Red Wings in Detroit. So it is a 2-1 regulation win for the Washington Capitals against the Red Wings in Detroit. Like I said, regulation being the key word there. To win this game in regulation was massive. It cannot be understated actually how massive it was for the Washington Capitals. So the Capitals playing, great defense, frankly, in this game. Like the Red Wings, I know they had a lot of shots on net, but like the Caps, for the most part, were keeping the Red Wings to the outside, right? Like they were keeping them on the perimeter just by playing strong defense. And so this game remained scoreless all the way until late in the second period. It was a nail biter. And then late in the second period, Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin with even strength goals, just a little over 2 minutes apart. Dylan Strome, I mean, what can we say about Dylan Strome at this point? His goal, it is a complete snipe, beats the goalie pretty cleanly there from in the slot. And, I'm running out of words, honestly, to describe Dylan Strome. He has been so clutch for the Washington Capitals during this playoff push here. He's been that way ever since he arrived here, really, ever since we got him. Last season was the same thing. I know it didn't work out for the team last season, lots of injuries and whatnot, but Dylan Strome, he was great last season. He's been great again this season. He scores here 1-0 for the Washington Capitals. And then, like I said, it's like just a little over 2 minutes apart between Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin goals. And Ovechkin's goal comes with just 7 seconds remaining in the second period. So that is a dagger in the hearts of the Detroit Red Wings. Unbelievable goal by Alex Ovechkin. Again, it's just a complete snipe past the Detroit netminder there. It was kind of a funny play. Like the Red Wings, they didn't turn the puck over a lot at all in this hockey game, but they turn it over here and they turn it over to the wrong guy, right? Like that is not the guy that you want coming down the wing and shooting the puck with 7 seconds left in the period. So TJ Oshie, he makes a pass off of the boards, which Ovi kind of lets it go behind him and picks it up from kind of behind his back to go in and, like I said, just snipe past the Detroit netminder. And that is Alex Ovechkin's 30th goal of the season. And that is the 18th time that he has had a 30-goal season in the National Hockey League, which is an NHL record. He breaks a tie that he held previously with Mike Gartner. And so Mike Gartner becomes second all-time now in NHL history with 17 30-goal seasons. So another day, another NHL record for Alex Ovechkin. And Dylan Strome's goal, by the way, should mention as well that it was assisted by Martin Feravari, and Alex Ovechkin's goal, it was assisted, like I said, by TJ Oshie making that pass off of the boards for Ovi to kind of skate into there. And so with the Caps up 2-0, the Red Wings, they would get a couple of power play opportunities in the third period to try to tie things up. But the Caps, they would kill them off to maintain their lead, and that was absolutely huge. That was massive, not to give the Red Wings any life there on their power plays, like I said, in the third period. And, you know, this was basically a shutout by Charlie Lindgren. Like, Patrick Kane got a fluky goal in garbage time with, I think it was 0.7 seconds left on the clock in the third period. But let me assure you, like, this was as good as a shutout by Charlie Lindgren. 42 saves for him in one of the clutchest performances you will ever see. He was phenomenal, as he has been all season for the Caps. And this was the biggest win of the season so far, right? Like, I mean, I guess if the Caps beat Boston and Philadelphia in these last two to clinch a playoff spot, then you could say that either of those or both of those two games are then the biggest wins of the season. But for right now, this is the biggest win of the season. And the fact is, I mean, the Caps would not even be in a position to clinch that playoff spot at all without this win against Detroit in Detroit's own barn. So, like I said, if we beat Boston, if we beat Philadelphia to ultimately clinch that playoff spot and get into the playoffs, then I'm sure that some people will be saying that, you know, the wins against Boston and Philadelphia are the biggest of the season, but we would not even be in that position to be able to clinch that playoff spot without this win against Detroit in Detroit's own barn, like I said. So just an absolutely massive victory by the Washington Capitals. But then, unfortunately, they follow that up, the Caps do, with a 4-2 regulation loss against the Sabres in Buffalo. So, what can you say? Inexplicably, following up the biggest win of the season in Detroit with one of the most lackadaisical performances, quite frankly, of the season in Buffalo a couple of nights later. And now, you know, like, I like to do positives on this show. You guys have probably, you know, you've probably noticed that about me by now. You know, I don't like to just be all negative all the time. And there were a few positives, believe it or not, in this game for the Washington Capitals. Namely, you know, Connor McMichael scoring another nice goal. And that is the 18th goal on the season for the kid. He is almost at 20 goals, which is awesome. He is nearly outscoring his age, which is always a great sign for a young player. He has had a hell of a season here for the Washington Capitals. Tom Wilson, he scored the other goal for the Caps. But honestly, like, it came too late in the game for me to really care at that point, quite frankly. His goal made it 4-2 at the time for Buffalo. It was after the Sabres had already added an empty net goal, and so there was only a minute left for the Caps to score 2 more goals to tie it at that point. At the point that Wilson put this puck in the net there. So, like, you'll excuse me if I wasn't overjoyed by that goal. It was kind of too little too late for me. But yeah, I mean, the Caps, like, they did play a really good defense in this one. It's actually kind of phenomenal, mind-boggling it is, that they managed to be, quite frankly, impotent enough offensively to lose this game, considering that they only gave the Sabres 17 shots on net. The Caps, they only turned the puck over 2 times in the entire 60-minute hockey game. So you would think that would be a pretty good recipe for success. But the problem is that on this night, that good defense came at the expense of anything resembling offense, right? It was honestly pretty brutal to watch offensively for the Caps in this game. Just one of the most boring hockey games, quite frankly, that I've watched all season. So heading into the next game against Tampa Bay, like, I was begging for the Caps to stop trying to win games 0-0, and to just get back to forechecking and being, like, intelligently aggressive, attacking in the right spots and at the right times to actually create some offense here. So to put it eloquently, I wanted them to basically come out and throw the kitchen sink at Andrei Vasilevskiy and the Tampa Bay Lightning. That is what I was begging them for. Play to win, right? Play to win. Like, don't play to not lose. Play to win. That is what I wanted to see from the Washington Capitals in their next game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that is what I got, baby. 4-2 regulation win for the Washington Capitals. They turned the tables there against the Lightning in Washington. So a lot to unpack here in this huge victory that, it vaulted the Caps back into a playoff spot and gave them control of their own playoff destiny. So, like I said, there's a lot to unpack here. There was a lot of things that happened in this game. But we'll start first with the scoring here. So, Sunshine Milano. Boy, is it great to have him back from injury. He scores the Caps' first 2 goals of this hockey game. The first one assisted by Max Pacioretty and Hendrix Lapierre. A beautiful passing play there. And then the second one was also a very nice passing play, except that this time it was Lightning goaltender Andrei Vasilevskiy with the nice pass right onto the tape of Sonny Milano in front of Vasilevsky's own net. So some curious decision-making there by one of the sport's best goaltenders, and Sonny is certainly not going to miss that. And Milano, by the way, he sets a new career high in goals with that one there, despite the fact that he missed basically half of the season due to injury. So this guy is only getting even better and better and better. Just like in the same vein as like a Dylan Strome, right, who has also set new career highs in goals and in points this season. These guys just keep getting better and better and better and better and better. And they're both young. They're both highly skilled players, and we got them both for free, which is kind of insane. Never forget. But yeah, it was Dylan Strome on the forecheck who pressured the Lightning and Vasilevskiy into making the mistake on that goal there as well. So just wanted to point that out, as Strome was initially credited with the primary assist, but the official scorer changed his mind. They changed it after deeming that Vasilevskiy had apparently enough control or possession of that puck that it was actually Vasilevskiy who was deemed to have made that pass essentially to Sonny Milano. So the goal was scored officially as being unassisted, but unofficially, we know that it was Dylan Strome who made that goal happen, right? And so The Caps went up 1-0. The Lightning tied it. The Caps went up 2-1. The Lightning tied it again. And so in the third period, 2-2 hockey game with the Caps fighting for their playoff lives, it is John frickin' Carlson, man, scoring one of the biggest goals of the Caps season so far off of a nice cross-ice pass from, you guessed it, Dylan Strome, baby. And there is absolutely no way that they can take that primary assist away from him. And so it is 3-2 Caps with a little over 10 minutes remaining in the third period. Massive goal there by John Carlson. Tom Wilson provided the secondary assist on Carlson's goal as well. And that goal by John Carlson, by the way, was also the 150th goal of his NHL career. An NHL career that has been played exclusively with the Washington Capitals, right? Who, obviously we drafted him. So with that, his 150th goal as a member of the Washington Capitals, he becomes the franchise's all-time leader in goals by a defenseman. And it could not have come at a better time. Truly, it could not have. Johnny B. Clutch, baby. And then with a little bit over 3 minutes remaining in the third period, it is Nick Dowd with a huge insurance goal to make it 4-2 and let Caps fans breathe a little bit there. And that would be your final score as the Caps grab 2 absolutely massive standings points, beating the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-2, like I said, in regulation. And Dowd's goal as well was assisted by Beck Malenstein and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. And there was a whole lot, like I said, to unpack here in this game other than just the scoring that took place. There was a whole bunch of things that happened. So let's address some of it quickly here before we break for the day. First of all, Nick Jensen, scary injury. Very scary injury here. He gets boarded blatantly by Michael Eyssimont of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Just literally blatantly shoved into the boards from 3 feet out from the boards. It's the textbook definition of boarding, and yet there is no penalty called on the play. The referees somehow deem that is not even a 2-minute minor penalty. So Nick Jensen just absolutely smokes his head on the boards there. And he's it looked like he was out cold right away, from my vantage point anyways, when they showed the replay there. Appeared that he was out cold pretty much as soon as his head hit the boards. And then he's laying motionless on the ice. You can see that he's out like a light. His eyes are closed and they're not opening. And he was not moving there as the trainers and everyone rushed out. They eventually end up bringing out the stretcher for him, to get him safely off of the ice. He still did not appear to be moving very much, if at all. He wasn't able to give a thumbs up to the crowd or anything like that. So it was a very scary scene, very scary moments, and a very scary injury for Nick Jensen. We did get an update after the game, however, that he thankfully did not have to go to the hospital, and that he was able to walk out of the building on his own power, with his family accompanying him. So scary scene, like I said, scary injury. But the fact that he was able to at least, walk out of the building on his own, like I said, of his own power, hopefully that is going to be a good sign. I'm sure that he's going to miss, some time here. He's probably not going to play in the last 2 games of the regular season at the very least. But hopefully, like I said, him walking out of the building afterwards, combined with the fact that he didn't end up having to go to the hospital, hopefully those are going to be good signs for him that this injury is not as serious or as scary as it looked like it certainly could have been. So, man, I just, you can probably tell I'm exasperated with this, and it's just because, a guy gets really injured like that, it could have been really, really bad, in terms of Nick Jensen's health. And it, like I said, it's textbook boarding. Like, there's no way that is not a boarding call in the National Hockey League. And yet the referees look at it and they're like, nothing wrong there. It's fine. So I don't get it. And that's frankly the next point that I want to bring up is the refereeing in this game. Because the no calls, like there was the no call on Nick Jensen's injury, the play that takes him out of this hockey game. There was a blatant high stick right in Dylan Strome's face, right in front of the referee on the Caps' first power play of the game. It should have definitely been a 5-on-3 there for the Washington Capitals. Like I said, happens right in front of the referee. The referee's looking right at it. It's a stick right straight up into Dylan Strome's face. It's not a follow through or anything like that. It's just a blatant high stick, and the ref's looking right at it, and he's like, you know what? I don't feel like blowing my whistle right now. So, and then Nikita Kucherov, blatant elbow right to the head of Tom Wilson, again, right in front of the referee. And again, there is no call. So, like, you can actually see Nikita Kucherov, rather. You can tell I'm getting riled up here. But you can actually see Nikita Kucherov in real time taking a look back at Tom Wilson coming towards him, calculating where Wilson's head is going to be at in a second here, and then making sure that he gets Wilson's head with his elbow. You can see it. Like, watch the replay back. You can see Nikita Kucherov clearly looking back at Tom Wilson. He sees him coming. You can tell he's clocking it. He's calculating where Wilson's head is going to be in a second here, and just times it perfectly and throws his elbow straight into Tom Wilson's head. No call. Referee has lost his whistle, I guess. Probably lost it up his ass while he was looking for his head. I don't know. But wait, no, he finds it. He finds it again. He finds the whistle. He locates it, and he blows it to whistle a penalty on the Caps instead. Calls a penalty on the Washington Capitals instead. And so Tampa is heading to a power play as Tom Wilson lays clutching his head on the ice. Great stuff. Great stuff there. I have no words, honestly. Like, at the very least, the Caps should have been coming out of that, like, with a 4-on-4 situation. If they wanted to call a penalty on the Caps, where's the penalty on Nikita Kucherov for the blatant elbow? At the very worst, it should have been a 4-on-4 situation for the Caps. Instead, the Caps are heading to the penalty kill out of that one. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I have no words. Nick Dowd. Let's talk about Nick Dowd. Nick Dowd, he drops the gloves with Michael Eyssimont. And make no mistake, like, this is Nick Dowd handling business because the referees refuse to. So Nick Dowd, he challenges Michael Eyssimont, whatever, to a fight off of the face-off here. Great job by Nick Dowd. He asks Eyssimont if he will go. He doesn't just like attack him from behind or anything like that. Doesn't cheap shot him or anything like that. He asks Eyssimont if he will go with him, if he will drop the gloves, and they drop the gloves off of the face-off. And Nick Dowd, man, just absolutely manhandles this guy. Just drills him several times right in the head. Eyssimont did not get a punch in. Nick Dowd blasted him. I believe it was like 6 or 7 times, like I said, straight into Eysimont's head. Just 6 or 7 straight punches, drops him, punches him one more time as he's on the way down, just for good measure, as a bit of a fuck you there. And, they skate off to the penalty box. Both of them do. And you can see in the penalty box, like, Dowd's telling Eyssimont, like, good job for accepting the fight, right? There's a bit of an unwritten code in hockey, obviously, that, you make a sketchy hit like that, like Eyssimont did on Nick Jensen, and, you are supposed to answer the bell. So Eyssimont did that, at least, to his credit, and then he gets his ass handed to him by Nick Dowd. So Dowd telling him in the penalty box, hey, good job, at least you answered the bell, right? And there were 57 hits. in the game by the Washington Capitals. 57 hits compared to 25 hits by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that 57 hits by the Caps is the most by any NHL team in a single game this season. So just an unbelievable job by the Washington Capitals. Like, just running through the box score here. Alex Ovechkin, the captain, he had 7 hits. He was a beast. Nick Dowd, he had 8 hits. He was also a beast. Tom Wilson, 4 hits. Beck Malenstein, 7 hits. TJ Oshie, 4 hits. Nicholas Aube-Kubel, 4 hits. On the back end, Alexander Alexeyev, 8 hits for the rookie. Martin Feravari, 5 hits. John Carlson, 4 hits. The list goes on and on and on. So these guys were all absolute monsters, absolute beasts in this game. There is no two ways about it. And I love that it is the young guys who play this way too. You know, it's Beck Malenstein. Hey, they called him Hershey's Tom Wilson for a reason, right? And Wreckham Beck and Beck the Czech and all of those nicknames. Like, those are just a few of the affectionate nicknames that I've heard for Beck Malenstein. But I mean, he certainly earned all of them, right? Like, he plays with an edge, that guy does. And yeah, I mean, like, it's Beck Malenstein doing it. It's Alexander Alexeyev doing it. It's Martin Feravari doing it. I just love that these young kids are afraid of absolutely nothing and of absolutely no one. Like, they will run into anything if it will recover a puck on the forecheck or if it'll stop somebody from getting at Charlie Lindgren. And I absolutely love that. I love it. That is exactly the way that it should be. And so the Caps responded to Nick Jensen's injury in the right way, right? First with a clean fight by Nick Dowd, and with clean hits as well. And, without chasing guys around for hits, which would have put themselves out of position and thus put themselves in position to lose the hockey game. So they didn't get stupid, which is easier said than done, obviously, when you watch a teammate go down like Nick Jensen did. But the Caps, they stay disciplined and they play extremely hard within the rules of the game to get the 2 points, which I guarantee you is what Nick Jensen wanted them to do anyway. He wanted them to get the 2 points. And they played great. They really did. And like I said, in this situation where you're fighting for a playoff spot, the best way, frankly, that you can avenge your teammate is to win the hockey game and get the 2 points. And Nick Dowd beating the brakes off of Michael Eyssimont certainly didn't hurt either. What a job by the man that they called Judge Judy there. Judge Judy and Executioner. Get him, baby. But yeah, I mean, it was just a phenomenal game overall by the Washington Capitals. And like I said, they avenged Nick Jensen by getting the 2 points, and it was a huge 2 points at that. And Charlie Lindgren as well. I can't forget about him. Charlie Lindgren in net for the Caps once again. He again was phenomenal. He stopped 32 of 34 shots by the Tampa Bay Lightning for a .941 save percentage. And Andrei Vasilevsky at the other end was also insane. Like, I know 4 goals against, and, if you didn't watch the game, you're probably going, Jenaya, what the hell are you talking about, right? 4 goals against, he can't have been that good. But really, like, Andrei Vasilevsky was very, very good in this hockey game as well. He made several huge stops to rob the Caps on several occasions. Otherwise, the Caps would have had probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 or 10 goals. Seriously. Vasilevsky was very good in this game as well. So credit where it's due to one of the sport's best. And the Caps defense against one of the most offensively dangerous teams in the league, in the Lightning, was impressive once again. The Caps have played these top teams really tough all season long, right? Like, look no further than the Caps record against Tampa Bay, and specifically against Nikita Kucherov this season. Like, I mean, the Caps have played Tampa Bay 3 times this season, and the Caps have won 2 out of those 3 games. And their only loss was in a shootout as well. So they still got 1 standings point out of that one too. But yeah, I mean, like, in those 3 games against Tampa Bay, the Caps have held the Lightning to just 6 total goals. 6 total goals over 3 games. This is a high scoring team in the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a highly skilled, highly dangerous team offensively in the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Caps have held them to just 6 total goals in 3 full hockey games. And, that's largely because of what the Caps have been able to do against Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov, who no one in the National Hockey League has been able to stop or even slow down this season, as evidenced, obviously, by his NHL-leading 141 points in 79 games played. So pretty clear that no one has been able to stop him. No one has even been able to slow him down this season, except, of course, for your Washington Capitals, because only one of those 141 points has come against our Washington Capitals, as the Caps have managed to keep Kucherov totally in check in their 3 games against him, holding him to just 1 measly assist in 3 full games. So that's pretty damn crazy, like I said, when you consider the way that he has completely torched the rest of the National Hockey League this season. So yeah, a phenomenal job by the Caps defensively again in this one. That's becoming par for the course under Spencer Carberry. And a huge shout out to Big O, Captain Alex Ovechkin, laying out in front of a Victor Hedman clapper with only about 20 seconds left to go in the game. That is a massive shot block. Ovi's doing everything out there. And I can tell you who loved it especially was goaltender Charlie Lindgren, judging by his reaction. He made sure to come all the way out of his crease, all the way up by the tops of the circles there, just to give Ovi a huge pat on the ass with his goalie stick, giving him basically the old, fuck yeah, baby, attaboy. You just love to see that from these guys. Like, every single guy to a man has bought in completely to what they're doing here and to what they're trying to accomplish here. And it is really, really special to see. All right. On that positive note, babes, let's call it a day here. That is going to be it for this one. We get back into a playoff spot and all of a sudden it's like you could just talk and talk forever. But checking the time on this one, it's already over 41 minutes long. So time to wrap it up. We have got an absolutely massive game on Monday night, and then potentially another absolutely massive game 24 hours later on Tuesday night. So you guys need to get some rest. I need to get some rest. We all need to get some rest here. And the next time that we chat via this podcast, we will know whether we are in the playoffs or not. So until then, I just wanted to thank you all again so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to our show if you haven't already done so. I appreciate it so much. We are available, like I mentioned earlier, across all major podcast platforms, so you can subscribe wherever you choose, wherever you like to get your podcast from. We're on basically, like I said, every podcast platform now. So until next time, babes, and as always, let's go Caps.